Okay, today I have with me Alexander Kirketeig. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing fine, thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this interview. Today we're going to talk about the Norwegian Frequency Project. That's been a study that a lot of people have talked about in recent years. And I know you know a lot about this project because you was involved in it. So before we start, could you give us a short introduction about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Alexander Kirketeig. I'm 37 years old right now. I've been involved in powerlifting since 1994. I started training and competing both in 1994. I've been doing international competition on sub-junior and junior levels, and now open levels from 1996. I had a short break from 2010 to 2013, where I did not do any international competition. But I've been pretty much competing international from 1996 until this year. So 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you compete in minus 93 kilogram class?
Yeah. Right now I compete in minus 93, and I'm training for the European Championship in May 2016. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Could you give us some numbers on your personal records in the three big lifts?
Yeah, my best so far is 342.5 squat in kilos, 262.5 bench, and 290 deadlift. And I did all of my personal best at the Europeans last year. So my best total is 895.
Kilograms, not pounds.
In kilograms, of course.
Yeah.
Pound, or, well, yeah.
Yeah, kilograms. Okay,
of
great.
Course.
Okay, so could we just first talk about because I know you were involved in this project, and you've also been involved in other projects at the Norwegian School of Sports Science.
Mm-hmm.
What was the background for conducting this study?
The background. Well, as some of you know, powerlifting, I guess, has been kind of influenced by bodybuilding when it comes to training. There have been a big transfer from bodybuilding to powerlifting back and forward. When I started training in 1994, that's pretty much how we trained. We trained like squat 1, maybe 2 times a week. We benched maybe 2 or 3 times, and we deadlifted one time a week. In 1997, Dietmar Wolf, which is now and has from 1997 been the head coach of the Norwegian Powerlifting Federation. He moved to Norway from Germany, Western Germany. He himself had previously been a weightlifter, and his education is from weightlifting. So when he came over, we started training more, and he started to increase the frequency a little bit. But still, the powerlifters of that area still wanted to train with a rather low frequency, because that's what they always done. Then again, from 2000, 2001, 2002, me, myself, and a couple of other of the junior team members, like Tor Herman Omland and Hildeborg Hugdal and Andreas Hjelmtveit. Both the latter two have both been IPF World Champion. Andreas in 2006 and Hildeborg several times. We started to ask for more frequency and wanted to train more than we did. One of the reasons was that we saw that Dietmar, he was not only a powerlifting coach, he was also training some weightlifters. Some of them, those weightlifters, were my friends, and I actually trained with them. So when I saw that they got training routines and training programs from Dietmar, the weightlifters, and they trained squats with a frequency of like 5, 8, 9 times a week. And I, as a powerlifter, were training 3, maybe 4 times a week. I was starting to wonder why this is. And I asked Dietmar, why are we still training like 3 times a week? Well, the weightlifters that are not competing in squat are squatting like 8 to 9 times a week. And he said, well, it's quite plain. You don't want to train that much, or I had never been asked to train that much. So me and the other guys started to ask for more training, and we said that okay, if the weightlifters can train every day, so can we. So from like 2002, we started increasing the training frequency, and we tried out different kind of methods. We trained 2 times a day for 3 days a week. We trained every day. We trained, I think the most I trained was like 10 squat sessions a week. So I had like 4 days with 2 training sessions a day, and then 2 days with 1 session, and one day off a week. And our experience was that the gains came, and we got stronger, and it was better training with a high frequency. We got more. We were able to like go through the training with more intensity. We had shorter trainings, and we did every lift with a higher kind of quality than we would do when we trained with lower frequency and maybe more load with a bigger volume on each training. So we increased the frequency and maybe reduce the loading per training a little bit. But even though this was kind of our own feelings and how we felt it was, but we had no real proof that it was better to increase the frequency. And as you still know, there's still a big debate on it. Is it good or is it not good? So we decided to do a project on it, and I pretty much came up with the idea and had previous done was involved in a couple of studies with Tromsø, and I wrote my bachelor's degree under Tromsø, and I asked if he was interested in doing a study on training frequency. And then I went.
What's your bachelor's degree in?
No, that was not my bachelor. My bachelor, I was involved in a study where what I saw, I looked at the different quality of strength and explosiveness of weightlifters and powerlifters. So that's a totally different thing. But yeah. Anyway, I went to the Powerlifting Federation and gave them my ID, and they came up with a founding. So we were able to do it. So we did it. Yeah, it was a combined effort between Norwegian Powerlifting Federation and the School of Science in Norway. Yeah.
Okay. And other people that were involved, I know you were involved in the project. Dietmar Wolf was involved in the project. Göran Paulsen, and as you mentioned, Truls Råstad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, Truls is probably one of the greatest researchers when it comes to strength training and things regarding to that topic. I don't know how many publications he has in PubMed, but I think
he has a lot, and I think most people that are into strength-related science
will know who Truls Råstad is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have the background. So, what was the main purpose of designing this study? Because you looked at several things when you did the study. Could you please explain what the main purpose was? Obviously, it was looking at strength at the three big lifts, like the squat, deadlift, and bench press. But did you look at other things as well?
For the test results, like other parameters.
Yeah, did you do other test results?
Yeah, of course. We tested, as you said, squat, bench, and deadlift. We did testing, like isokinetic and isometric tests and stuff like that over the knee joint. We did squat jumps and jump tests. We used MRI for cross-sectional area of the hamstring and quadriceps. We used ultrasound for the vastus lateralis for both size and for angle of muscle fiber. We were supposed to do DEXA, but some of the guys were so big that the DEXA wouldn't. That we had would only do half of their body or something. So their arms and shoulders was outside of the range of the DEXA. So and then we had some problems with the time and stuff. So we did not. We were not able to do DEXAs on enough people to kind of use those data. So we also used the in-body machine for like total body composition and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, and did so you measured strength and did other tests, and you also said you did some measurement to measure hypertrophy in the muscle.
Yeah.
Did you only do that for the lower body, like the quadriceps, or did you do it for other muscle groups as well?
No, we only did MRI for the quadriceps and ultrasound for the vastus lateralis, and then we had the in-body for total body mass or muscle mass. But we did not do any measurements for hypertrophy of other muscles than those. No.
Okay. So you mentioned a bit about the participants in the study, that these were fairly large individuals. Could you just describe the level of experience that these participants have in regards to strength and at which level they were?
One of the requirement was that these were people that were lifting or at least qualified for the national powerlifting championship, and at least have been doing powerlifting competition for 2 years. So of course there was some level differences from between the people, but they were all highly trained individual and strong individual, which also is shown by the kilos they're actually lifting. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, a great deal of these people that were involved in the study are now national team members, and some of them were national team members at that point. Yeah.
Okay. Before we go into the design of the study, what did the participants? How did the participants actually train before the study? Do you have any knowledge about that?
Well, since some of the people were part of the national team, and like what Norway has done, and which is probably the big secret of the level in Norway, is that we have had a very good training education for coaches. And the head coaches, Dietmar Wolf, who have kind of have responsibility not only for coaching the national team, but also educating coaches under him. So what we know is that almost all of these people, like maybe except one or two of the participants, they had all been training like what we call Dietmar routines. They had all been training programs by him, or really close to what he had what he would have prescribed for them. So they were all trained. They had all coaches. And all of those coaches were educated by Dietmar. So they had all a pretty fair, like a pretty similar background, all of them. Most of them were training 4 days a week before this. Yeah.
Okay. And what type of frequency did they have for each of the 3 lifts? Was it
then pretty much 4 days with squatting, 4 days of benching, and then maybe 3 times of deadlifting, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So they had pretty much, most of them had the same routine that they used before going into the study, with a frequency of 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah. I can possibly say that none of the subjects were training squat and benching under 3 days a week.
Okay, great. So let's talk more about how the study was actually designed, because you took the participants and you divided them into 2 different groups.
Yep.
And you had the same training volume for each group, but the only variable you actually did was the frequency.
Yeah, that's correct. Pretty much how this was laid out was, and that's how we would do it now with a 3-day routine. We would train 2 variants of squat, 2 of bench, and 2 of deadlift. So we have a heavy exercise and a lighter exercise of each lift. So a typical thing would be like powerlifting squats, ordinary powerlifting squats, as the first exercise, as the first squat exercise, and then maybe lighter box squats as exercise number 2. So for the 3 days week, they would, as I said, train 2 squats exercises, 2 bench exercises, and 2 deadlift exercises. And do that for each of the weeks. The 6-day group would do half of those. So they would do 1 squat exercise, 1 bench exercise, and 1 deadlift exercise each day. So pretty much for the 3 days, week 1, day 1, Monday training was done Monday for the 3 days, but it was done on Monday and Tuesday. Like the Monday training was divided in 2 and done Monday and Tuesday. So every after the 6-day group had finished their sessions on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, they had always done the exact same amount or the exact same volume of training. So the training volume is the same. And exercise is the same. Yeah, okay. Everything is the same. Yeah.
So basically, you had 3 days. 3 days group did 2 exercises variations for each lift.
Yeah.
3 times a week.
Yeah.
6 days they had only one of the exercise each time, and you divided that into 6 days instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many sets do they typically do in each session?
From 4 to 8 sets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of results, what did you actually find? Both for, let's take strength first, between the 2 groups.
The interesting part here is that when we set up this, and Dietmar has enormous experience with making training routines, of course. So we said that okay, we'll have a training volume, and the training volume and the weights will of course increase during the training routine. So we were planning to have 5% increase in strength. Our goal was to increase the strength with 5%, which is for this kind of group extremely good. And for the squat and for the bench, that's pretty much what the 3-day group actually got. They had an average of about 5% strength gains during the training routine. However, the 6-day group increased their bench with about 10%, the squat a little bit over 10%, and also the deadlift around 10%. So they had the double amount of strength gains. So I don't know. Maybe the interesting thing is that if you divide it on the number of sessions, the 3 days and the 6-day group actually had pretty much the same gains per session. But because you have a higher frequency, you had a double amount of gains.
Okay. So
when it comes to the deadlift, the deadlift, in the deadlift we did not have scientific
significant
increases. Increases. Yeah.
Okay. So
differences. There were no significant differences between the group.
Okay, so in the squats you saw the largest gains from going from increasing the frequency from 3 times to 6 times a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you also saw some good gains in the bench press from going through 3 to 6 times, but there wasn't as much. There wasn't any significant increases in strength between the 3-day group and the 6-day group on the deadlift.
No. If you see the plots and you see that, you can see that, but there were no significant difference. Both of the group had significant increases, but there was not a significant difference between the group. No.
Okay. So what can, if we can take that the results you find there, what will be the most reasonable thing to do in regards to frequency between the different lifts? Like obviously 6 times a week for the squat is probably a way to go. Yeah. Same thing maybe with the bench press, but what about the deadlift?
Well, my experience later on, I have done a little bit less of. I had to reduce the frequency of the deadlift, and maybe the total volume in this routine also was a little bit too much in the deadlift. From my experience, I use a little bit lower frequency and maybe a little bit less volume for the deadlift than what we did in this routine. So there's a clear difference between how much volume you can do in squat and how much volume you can do in deadlift. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's go over to the results you found on hypertrophy.
Yep.
What did you actually see in regards to difference between the 3 days group and the 6 days group?
That was kind of the interesting thing to see, because we can maybe wonder why is there a strength difference between the 6 and the 3 day group, and one of the reasons that you of course can think of is that the 6 day group they had shorter training session, so each lift were performed with better quality. So there could be like a technical difference and things like that. So that was some of the things we were thinking about before we actually got the numbers from the MRI, because as you know, it takes some time to kind of do the numbers for the MRI. But what we found there is that the 3 day group had no changes in quadriceps cross-sectional area, and maybe close to a small
decrease
degree of atrophy. Yeah.
Okay.
But the 6 day group had about a 5% increase in cross-sectional area.
Okay, so any idea why it appeared to why the participants in the 3 days group compared to the 6 days group appeared to have some atrophy in the muscles? Any theories about that?
Well, I really don't know. A theory could be that, like from talking to the participants, it seemed like the 3 day group were more exhausted during the training week. That even though they had 4 days of full recovery, the total volume and the stimulus that they were put through for each training session was so big that the recovery time increased so much that they were not fully recovered until next training. So I'm not sure. It seems like they were not able to fully recover between training sessions, and somehow that might be more important for hypertrophy than actually for strength gains. But I do not have the answer here.
Okay, but how long? We forgot to mention that. How long was this study?
The training, the total amount of time was about 15 weeks. But the training, the difference in training was 12 weeks. The training routine itself was 12 weeks.
Okay,
yeah.
So training routine was 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And how was it? How was the program periodized during the study? Did they have like an overreaching phase during the study, tapering phase? How did you actually program it?
It's not much tempering in this phase. There was a little bit of tempering the week after week 12, but in front of the tests and stuff like that. But for the 12 weeks there were no tempering, and what we did was that we did like for the first part we had a little higher repetition range. So the first 6 to 7 weeks was kind of a hypertrophy part, or what we would call a volume phase. And then it was more like a competition phase for the last 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A little more questions about hypertrophy, because you probably noticed this study has been talked a lot about in the fitness community for several years, and it's becoming more popular to do more high frequency training also for hypertrophy. So this study was designed on powerlifters, and the main purpose was to look at strength, but you also looked at hypertrophy and also saw some gains in hypertrophy in the 6 days group compared to the 3 days group.
In the vastus lateralis and quadriceps, yeah.
Yeah. In those muscles.
Yep.
What's your take on doing this high of a frequency if your goal is to, for example, or if your goal is to maximize hypertrophy? Is that something you would advise people to do, or let's hear your take on this?
Well, first of all, I'm not a bodybuilder, and I don't train bodybuilders. I train powerlifters, and our main goal was to see strength gains. And my take is that for strength gains and for powerlifting or for other strength sports, a rather high frequency with a controlled volume is the way to go. Is superior to a lower frequency. I'm pretty sure about this because not only from this study, but also from the experience that we have had since this study actually was done. But when it comes to hypertrophy and for like a bodybuilder, I'm not quite sure because during this routine, our main focus was squat, bench, and deadlift. And if you are a bodybuilder, I think you need to train more than squat, bench, and deadlift. And the other part is that when I, as a coach, and I also know that Dietmar is doing the same thing, when we do more of a hypertrophy phase, we actually reduce the frequency a little bit. I do believe that going into hypertrophy, we need to be a little bit closer to failure on each set and on each exercise, and maybe a little bit more rep. And going closer to failure also increases the recovery time. So my experience is that when we are going, even with people that are used to training 6 days a week, when we are going into hypertrophy, and we reduce the frequency a little bit. We still use a higher frequency than a typical old school bodybuilding type of one session every 7 days or 12 days or whatever. But we reduce the frequency a little bit for the hypertrophy. Yeah.
Okay, so you, in your hypertrophy phases, you decrease the frequency, increase the volume in each session to have a larger stimulus, and you also train closer to failure. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's my experience, yeah.
Okay. It would be interesting if there were actually made some measurements besides the lower body, but it wasn't probably not practical to do it in this study as the main purpose was to look at strength, but like the one thing I'm thinking about is that we have seen other studies that also show that the lower body requires more volume than the upper body. So I'm thinking that maybe you can see higher gains in hypertrophy with a higher frequency if you train the lower body, but it would be interesting to see if that actually is the case in the upper body as well.
Absolutely, and that, I guess someone has done it, and there's surely people who know more about this than me, because as I said, I'm not a bodybuilder. But one thing is that there's a clear difference between how much squat you can train and how much deadlift you can train. Like deadlifting, you can get away with deadlifting once a week and still gain strength. You can get away with it. It's not necessarily the best way, but there's a clear difference between how much volume and how much frequency you can do in the deadlift and the squat. So I do believe, and also I tend to think that maybe also for the bench you can actually get away with a little lower frequency. You can of course get away with lower frequency in the squat also, but I do believe that pretty much if you can control the volume and intensity, I think higher frequency is pretty much better. And I would actually like to increase the frequency of the squat and maybe do like 10 or 12 sessions a week and see how that would work out.
Okay. But now we're talking for strength.
For
right?
strength, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, to summarize this, it seems that training with a higher frequency might be a good idea if your goal is to maximize strength, especially if you're a weightlifter or a powerlifter. But in regards to hypertrophy, although you saw some gains there in the 6 days group compared to the 3 days group, might be a good idea to wait for further research and specifically looking at hypertrophy as the main purpose. What's your take on that?
Yeah, have been a stronger believer in high frequency for strength in the later years and after the studies and the things we also have done after the study. So yeah, for strength, I'm absolutely positively sure that a higher frequency with a controlled volume, with a controlled intensity, is the best way to go. But we did not do any other test than for the clutch tests on hypertrophy. So we do really not know, and like I believe that a high frequency training has been done for the best athletes, power athletes in the world, like weightlifters from China, Russia, and Germany, and everywhere they are doing high frequency training. Most of the good powerlifters in the world, there are exceptions, but most good powerlifters are doing high frequency. And when it comes to bodybuilding, they have pretty much done the same thing for 40 years. And, well, maybe everyone has done the wrong thing for 40 years, but I'm pretty sure that they are doing it for a reason. So I think that for hypertrophy, you can get away with a higher frequency than what a lot of people are doing. I do not believe that doing chests one time a week is the way to go. I believe in a higher frequency, but I'm not sure that training every day or 6 days a week or 5 days a week is the way to go with bodybuilding or with hypertrophy. No matter how you see it, if you take a powerlifter and a bodybuilder about the same height and the same training experience and the same weight, they would still look different.
Yeah.
There's a clear difference how they look. Of course, you have powerlifters that are ripped and look more like bodybuilders, but that's normally the guys that actually are training like bodybuilders. So there is actually a difference in how people look, and if you if you go into Arnold Classic and you go into if you go into the big showroom in Arnold Classic, you can pretty much say who is bodybuilding and who is powerlifting.
Yeah.
So there's a clear difference in how the muscle actually looks compared to like how you are training.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I totally agree that training once a week, as a lot of people do, or hopefully used to do and are not doing anymore, but I know that still a lot of people are doing it, is probably not optimal if we think about hypertrophy. But I have to be honest that we haven't had a lot of studies with such a high frequency as 6 times a week, and this is actually the only study that I personally know about that used such a high frequency. And I think it's maybe a good idea to wait for further research specifically looking at hypertrophy with this high of frequency before we conclude with anything and start to use this as the what should I say, main frequency number that we use, because I know that a lot of people have jumped on it and used such a high frequency, and for me personally, I more think of frequency as how you divide your volume during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So basically using it as a tool. And I also think that exercise selection matter and which type of muscles you actually train, because I think that some muscle might handle a higher frequency while others don't handle a higher frequency. And I talked to Dr. Mike Israetel about this topic when we discussed high frequency, and we basically agreed on the same thing, that we probably need more research on higher frequency training in regards to hypertrophy before we can conclude with anything.
I think so too, and like my experience, but again, I'm not a bodybuilder, but my experience is that the body or different muscle groups can handle the different frequency different. And for squatting and maybe for benching, higher frequency is better. But for squatting, absolutely, the squatting is the way to go. But like I've said, for deadlifting, I'm not sure. Deadlifting is totally different. So again,
yeah.
Deadlifting for me personally, it's about low frequency and higher intensity. While both bench and squatting for me, I personally get stronger, and the people I train get stronger from high frequency with a controlled volume and controlled intensity.
Okay.
So, and the other thing is that if you want to bodybuild, you have to put the same amount of attention to pretty much every body part. So if you're training every body part each session, and then you also have to have a little bit of attention to the different angles of the muscle and stuff like that. That's a lot of different exercises that you have to go through on each session to kind of to do that. So yeah, for power and powerlifting, high frequency is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, that was great. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to see this video. It's been a lot of talk about it. Is there any place where people can read more about you and connect with you? Are you available on any social media?
No. Well, of course, I'm on Facebook. I do not self-training. I do not do this. I train Norwegian powerlifting powerlifters and some of my club members and stuff like that. But I'm not a whore.
But are you? What is your involvement in the Norwegian Powerlifting Federation? You work there as a coach for some of the athletes?
Yeah, right now I've been on the board of directors for 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in charge of the training education and were in charge of projects and stuff like that we had going on with the Norwegian School of Science. But right now I'm a regional coach. I'm a coach for the regional teams, and I'm also when I went back into competing and myself, I kind of reduced my other work with powerlifting. So I'm concentrating on the regional team, and I'm concentrating pretty much on myself.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent.
And my own career, my own lifting,
own lifting career. New PRs coming this year.
I hope so. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
If I can't get in stronger, then I can do something else.
Yeah.
Instead of blogging, for example. Yeah.
Okay, Alex. Thank you so much for your time, and have a nice day.
Hi. Bye.
Bye.